Cameron fired me on a Tuesday morning in the warehouse break room. He didn't sit down, just stood there with his arms crossed, that utility jacket zipped halfway up, and told me I'd missed too many shifts. I'd missed 4 in 2 weeks, maybe 5. I wasn't really keeping count at that point because I'd been trying to pick up anything extra I could find, dishwashing gigs, moving jobs off Craigslist, and sometimes the timing didn't line up. "Can't keep doing this," Cameron said. His voice had that flat thing it always got when he'd already made up his mind. "You're off the schedule." I asked if I could make it up. Work a double, something. He shook his head. Didn't even look annoyed, just done. "Already got someone to cover your route." That was it. He walked out, and I sat there for a minute with half a cup of burnt coffee going cold in a styrofoam cup. There was a safety poster on the wall about proper lifting techniques. I'd seen it probably 100 times. Bend at the knees. Keep your back straight. I wondered if anyone had ever actually read the whole thing. I grabbed my hoodie from my locker and left through the side door so I wouldn't have to walk past the guys on the floor. The car was parked in the back lot. 2001 Honda Civic with a dent in the passenger door and a check engine light that had been on since June. I sat in the driver's seat and tried to figure out what came next. Rent was due in a week. I had maybe $300 left. Probably less. I hadn't checked the account in a few days because I didn't really want to know. I drove back to the house on 38th Street. Eliana's place. Technically. I'd been crashing in the spare room since April, paying what I could when I could, and she'd been cool about it for a while. But things had gotten tight. I knew that. She knew that. Her car was in the driveway when I pulled up. That felt wrong. She worked mornings at the clinic and usually didn't get back until after 2. I walked up to the porch and saw my stuff. 2 black garbage bags and a duffel. My work boots sitting on top. The spare key I'd been using was on the doormat under a rock. I tried the door anyway. Locked. Eliana opened it before I could knock. She had her hair up in that messy bun she always did, and she didn't look mad, just tired. "I can't do this anymore," she said. I told her I'd have rent by Friday, maybe Saturday. She shook her head. "You said that 2 weeks ago." I started to say something else, but she held up a hand. "I'm sorry, I really am, but I can't." She shut the door. I heard the deadbolt slide. I stood there for a second, then picked up the bags and the duffel and loaded them into the Civic. The boots went in the passenger footwell. I sat in the car and looked at the house. There was a window box on the second floor with dead flowers in it. I'd been meaning to ask if she wanted me to pull those out, but I never got around to it. I drove. Didn't really have a plan. Just drove south and then east and ended up along the river. There's a stretch off West River Parkway where you can pull off onto the shoulder and nobody really bothers you if you're not making noise. I'd seen people parked there before. Vans, mostly. A couple RVs. I parked under a tree and reclined the seat as far as it would go. That was the first night. The next 2 weeks kind of blurred together. I woke up when the sun came through the windshield, usually around 6 or 7, and then I'd drive to a gas station to wash my face and brush my teeth in the bathroom. There was a Holiday on Minnehaha that had a single-stall setup, which was better than the ones with multiple sinks where people would stare. I bought coffee most mornings, not the good kind, just the stuff from the self-serve pump that tasted like hot water and regret. $1.69. Sometimes I'd get a breakfast sandwich from the hot case if I had a few extra bucks, those microwave burritos that are 90% tortilla. I stretched the cash as far as I could. Rationed it out. $10 a day max. Some days less. I applied for jobs on my phone at the library. They had free Wi-Fi and outlets, and nobody cared if you sat there for a few hours as long as you didn't cause problems. I filled out applications for warehouses, retail, overnight stocking, anything. Most of them wanted references. I put down Cameron's name anyway and figured he probably wouldn't answer if they called. Nobody called. I texted Charlotte on day 9. She was my cousin. We weren't super close, but we'd helped each other out before. She'd let me stay on her couch once when I was between places, and I'd helped her move apartments twice. I figured that counted for something. I kept it simple. Just asked if she had room for a few days while I sorted things out. She didn't respond. I waited 2 days and sent another text. A little more detail this time. Told her I was in a tight spot and could really use a hand. Nothing. I called on day 12. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. That night I sat in the Civic and watched the river and tried to think of anyone else I could ask. I came up empty. There were people I knew, sure. Guys from the warehouse, a couple friends from high school who still lived in the area. But nobody I could call and say, "Hey, I'm homeless. Can I crash with you?" It felt weird to even think the word. Homeless, like it didn't really apply. I had a car. I had some money left. It wasn't that bad. Except it kind of was. I needed something stable. Something with a door that locked and a place to sleep that wasn't a reclined car seat. And I needed it fast because the $300 was down to maybe $120, and winter was coming, and I couldn't spend November sleeping in a Civic. I started searching for anything that came with housing, caretaker jobs, live-in positions. I wasn't picky. I just needed a roof. That's when I found the listing. It was on one of those job boards that's half legitimate postings and half scams. Overnight assistant at Washburn McReevy Funeral Chapels on Lyndale Avenue. Immediate start. No references required, just a valid ID and a willingness to work alone. Included a cot in a storage room and a staff key card for building access. I read it 3 times. A funeral home. I'd never worked with dead people before. Never really thought about it. But it didn't say I'd be handling bodies or anything. Just assisting. Cleaning, probably. Paperwork. Whatever needed doing overnight when nobody else was around. And it came with a place to sleep. I called the number on the listing. A woman answered on the second ring. She sounded older, professional. Washburn McReevy, Andrea speaking. I asked about the assistant position. "Still available," she said. "Can you start tonight?" I said yes. She told me to come by at 8, bring my ID, and be ready to work. She didn't ask about my work history. Didn't ask for a resume, just said 8 o'clock and hung up. I sat there in the library with my phone in my hand and tried to decide if this was a terrible idea. Probably, but I didn't really have better options. I showed up at 7:55. The building was old, brick, 2 stories with narrow windows and a sign out front in that fancy script that funeral places always use. There were a few cars in the lot. I parked near the back and grabbed my duffel from the trunk. The front door was locked. I knocked. Andrea opened it. She was maybe 50, with short gray hair and glasses on a chain around her neck. She looked me over once quick, then stepped aside. "Come in." I followed her through a lobby with dark wood paneling and soft lighting. It smelled like flowers and something else. Cleaning solution, maybe. We went down a hallway and she showed me a small room in the back. There was a cot with a thin mattress, a metal locker, and a folding chair. One window with a view of the parking lot. "This is yours," she said. "Staff bathroom is 2 doors down. Kitchen access on the main floor. You'll work 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., 5 nights a week. Cleaning, inventory, prep work. I'll show you the checklist." I asked what prep work meant. Setting up for services, arranging chairs, printing programs, simple tasks. She handed me a key card on a lanyard. It had my name on it already. Peyton Perkins. I wondered when she'd had time to make it. "Any questions?" I asked when I'd get paid. "Bi-weekly, direct deposit. Fill out your paperwork tonight." She walked me through the building, showed me the chapels, the storage areas, the utility closets. Everything was quiet, calm. I kept waiting to feel weird about it, about being in a place where dead people were, but mostly I just felt relieved. I had a door that locked. I had a place to sleep. That was enough. Andrea left around 9. Told me the checklist was on the desk in the prep room and to call her cell if anything came up. Then she was gone, and I was alone. I stood in the hallway for a minute and listened to the building settle, the hum of the HVAC, a clock ticking somewhere. I told myself it was temporary, just until I got back on my feet. A month, maybe 2. I could handle it. I grabbed the checklist and got to work, trying hard to act like being surrounded by death didn't bother me anymore. It mostly worked. Andrea came back around 9:15 with a clipboard and a flashlight she didn't turn on. She motioned for me to follow her down the hallway, past the prep room, past the staff bathroom I'd already located, toward the back of the building where the fluorescent lights hummed louder and the carpet gave way to linoleum that looked about 30 years old. She didn't ask where I was from, didn't ask about my last job or why I needed a place to sleep. Just walked ahead with her keys jingling on a retractable clip and her shoes making these efficient little clicks on the floor. I followed, figured the tour was part of the deal. She showed me the storage areas first, 3 rooms total, all connected by a narrow hallway that smelled like dust and industrial cleaner. The first room had folding chairs stacked against one wall, maybe 60 of them, and a rolling rack of what looked like velvet ropes on stands. The kind you'd see at a movie theater. Andrea pointed at them and said, "Chapel barriers. You'll use them for larger services." I nodded. The second room had shelves, metal ones, floor to ceiling, stocked with boxes of tissues, guest books with blank spines, wooden podiums in 3 different heights, and about a dozen vases wrapped in plastic. Andrea ran her hand along one shelf, checking for dust, I guess, then moved on without commenting. The third room was colder. I noticed that right away. It had a big industrial sink, the kind with a pull-down sprayer and cabinets labeled with masking tape. Tablecloths, programs, signage. One cabinet had a padlock on it. Andrea didn't mention that one. She turned to face me, pulling a single piece of paper from her clipboard, white standard printer paper, a little crease down the middle like she'd folded it before. "This is the part that matters," she said. I took the paper. It was typed, single-spaced, no header or logo or anything, just a list. Overnight procedures, non-negotiable. 1. If you find a toe tag, flip to the blank side, turn it back over immediately. Do not read what is written on the reverse. 2. Do not approach the cooler door between 2:11 a.m. and 2:26 a.m. If you are near it at 2:10, leave the area. 3. If someone calls your name from the prep room after midnight, do not answer. Do not enter the prep room until you have verified the source. 4. The service elevator must remain on floor 1 unless you are actively using it. Check its position at the start and end of your shift. 5. From 3 a.m. to 3:07 a.m., stand in the front lobby. Face the door. Do not turn around until the wall clock reads 3:07. I read it twice. The second time didn't make it make more sense. Andrea watched me the whole time. Her expression didn't change. "Read it again if you need to," she said. "I got it. You need to sign it." She handed me a pen, blue ink, the cheap kind that comes in a box of 50. I looked at the bottom of the page. There was a line there, and underneath it, small print. I acknowledge these procedures and agree to follow them exactly as written. I held the pen for a second. "What happens if I don't?" "You won't work here," Andrea said. Her voice didn't get louder or sharper, just stayed flat. "These rules are older than this building. They're not negotiable." I almost asked what she meant by older than the building, but something in the way she stood there, clipboard against her chest, keys quiet now, made me think she wouldn't answer. Or couldn't. I signed it. My handwriting looked messier than usual. I handed the paper and pen back. Andrea clipped the page to her board without looking at it. "Good," she said. Then she folded the board under her arm and motioned for me to follow her again. We walked back toward the main hall. She stopped at a door I'd passed earlier, unlocked it with one of her keys, and flipped a light switch inside. It was a closet, narrow, maybe 4 feet deep, with a mop sink built into the back wall and wire shelving on both sides. One side had cleaning supplies, spray bottles, rags, a bucket, rubber gloves still in the package. The other side had linens, tablecloths in plastic bins, folded towels, and a stack of flat sheets that looked thin but clean. "You'll need these," Andrea said, nodding toward the cleaning supplies. "Checklist is in the prep room. It'll tell you which areas to handle each night." I looked at the mop sink. The faucet had rust stains around the base. "Spare linens are here if you need them," she added, tapping the shelf with the sheets. "For the cot." "Got it?" She stepped back into the hallway and locked the closet again. Then she led me back to the storage room where she'd put me earlier. The cot was still there. Same thin mattress, same metal frame. The window showed the parking lot outside, mostly empty now except for my Civic and a white van I hadn't noticed before. Andrea stood in the doorway. "You start at 10, she said. "Checklist is your priority. If something comes up that isn't on the list, call me. Number's on the desk in the prep room." "Okay." She looked at me for a second, and I got the feeling she was deciding whether to say something else. But she didn't. She just nodded once, turned, and walked back down the hallway toward the front of the building. I heard the staff door open, then close, then the deadbolt click. I stood there in the doorway of my new room, listening to the HVAC hum in the building settle. It was the kind of quiet that wasn't really quiet. Little sounds everywhere. The clock ticking from somewhere down the hall, a pipe groaning behind the walls, the fluorescent light above me buzzing just enough to notice. I checked my phone. 9:43, 17 minutes until I was supposed to start. I went to the prep room to find the checklist. The room was small, just a desk and a filing cabinet and a printer that looked like it was from 2008. The checklist was on the desk, printed on the same kind of paper as the rules. It had my name at the top. Peyton Perkins, Night 1. The list wasn't long. Sweep and mop the front lobby. Wipe down the chapel pews in room A. Check the flower stands for wilted arrangements. Restock tissues in all 3 chapels. Empty trash bins. Refill guestbook pens. I grabbed the checklist and went back to the closet Andrea had shown me. Unlocked it with the key on my new lanyard, pulled out the mop and bucket, and filled the bucket halfway at the sink. The water came out cold and a little brown at first, then cleared up. I started in the lobby. It was the biggest open space in the building, maybe 20 feet wide, with dark wood paneling on the walls and a chandelier that looked too fancy for the rest of the place. The floor was tile, white with gray veins, scuffed in places, but clean enough. I swept first. Barely anything there. A few bits of lint, some dirt tracked in near the door. Then I mopped, working backward from the far wall toward the hallway so I wouldn't step on the wet parts. The whole time I kept thinking about the rules. Flipped toe tags, the cooler door, someone calling my name. I didn't love any of it, but I'd signed the paper, and I had a place to sleep that wasn't my car. That was worth something. I finished the lobby and moved the mop bucket to Chapel A. The door was already open. Inside, there were 8 rows of pews, dark wood again, and a small podium at the front. No flowers tonight, no service set up, just empty rows and the smell of furniture polish. I wiped down the pews with a rag Andrea had left in the cleaning supplies. They didn't look dirty, but I wiped them anyway. The checklist said to, so I did. After that, I checked the flower stands. There were 3 of them in the hallway between the chapels, tall black metal things with round tops. 2 of them were empty. The third one had an arrangement that was starting to droop. I pulled it off the stand and carried it to the prep room, figuring I'd ask Andrea what to do with dead flowers tomorrow. I kept going, restocked the tissues, refilled the pens, emptied 2 trash bins that had maybe 3 pieces of paper between them. By the time I finished, it was 11:20. I stood in the hallway with the mop bucket and the flower stand I'd just moved back into place, and I realized the building felt different now. Heavier, maybe, like the walls were paying attention. I told myself that was stupid. It was just a funeral home, just a building. But the quiet kept pressing in, and I couldn't shake it. I kept busy after that. Didn't want to stand still too long. The arrangement office sat near the back hallway, just past Chapel B. Small room with a desk and 2 chairs for families to sit in. The counter had water rings on it. Old ones, sealed under the varnish, and newer ones from coffee mugs or tissue boxes. I sprayed cleaner on a rag and wiped the whole surface down. The varnish had cracks in it near the edges. I worked the rag into the seam where the counter met the wall, pulled out a small clump of dust. The cleaner smelled sharp. Chemical lemon that didn't smell like actual lemons at all. There was a framed photo on the desk, black and white. Older couple standing in front of the building back when the sign looked newer. I didn't move it, just wiped around the base. After that, I grabbed the trash bag from the arrangement office. It was mostly empty, just a crumpled tissue and a sticky note with a phone number I couldn't read. I tied the bag anyway and set it by the hallway with the others I'd collected earlier. The hallway between Chapel A and the staff bathroom had a narrow runner rug that didn't quite reach the walls on either side. It was dark red, maybe burgundy, with some kind of pattern worn down to almost nothing in the middle. I pulled it up and carried it outside through the side door near my room. The air hit cold. Sharp enough I could see my breath. I shook the rug out over the railing, watched the dust catch the parking lot lights. My Civic sat under the far light, duffel still in the back seat. I shook the rug twice more, carried it back inside, and laid it flat again in the hallway. It didn't sit perfectly straight, but I figured close enough. I checked my phone. 12:41. The building had been making sounds all night. Little creaks, the HVAC kicking on and off, pipes doing whatever pipes do. I'd gotten used to it. Background noise. But when I came back in from shaking the rug and set my phone down on the prep room desk, the sounds just stopped. Not all at once. It wasn't dramatic. The HVAC cycled off, which it had done before, and the pipes went quiet. And I stood there in the hallway realizing I couldn't hear anything anymore. 12:48. I stayed still. Listened. Nothing. Not the clock ticking. Not the fluorescent lights buzzing, not the building settling, just this flat, dead silence that sat heavy in my ears. I could hear my own breathing. That was it. I didn't like it. I walked back toward the lobby, my boots making sounds on the linoleum that felt way too loud. Each step echoed a little. I passed Chapel A, the door still half open from when I'd wiped down the pews earlier. The chandelier in the lobby was on the same dimmed setting it had been all night, but the light seemed thinner now, like it wasn't reaching as far. I stood in the lobby, listened again. Still nothing. My phone was back in the prep room. I'd left it on the desk. I thought about going to grab it, but didn't want to walk back down that hallway for some reason. Then the service elevator dinged, just once. Single chime. Bright and clear coming from the back hall past the storage rooms. I hadn't touched that elevator, hadn't been anywhere near it since I checked it at the start of my shift. I moved fast, not running, but not slow either. Back down the main hallway, past the prep room, past my storage room with the cot, around the corner to where the service elevator sat behind a brushed metal door. The floor indicator above the door showed a lit number 1. First floor. The button panel next to the door had no lights on. Nothing glowing. Call button dark. I stood there staring at it. The rule said the elevator had to stay on floor 1 unless I was actively using it. Check it at the start and end of every shift. It was on floor 1. Doors shut. No button lit. It was exactly where it was supposed to be. But it had dinged. I pressed my palm against the metal door. Cold. Solid. No vibration, no sound of machinery or cables moving. I stepped back, watched the floor indicator for maybe 30 seconds. The number 1 stayed lit. Nothing changed. I walked back to the prep room, grabbed my phone off the desk. 12:53. I pulled up the picture I'd taken of the rules document on my first read-through. Rule 4. Service elevator must remain on floor 1 unless actively in use. Check position at shift, start, and end. It didn't say anything about what to do if it made sounds on its own. I sat down in the prep room chair. It was one of those old rolling ones with a cushion that had gone flat. I could feel the hard plastic base through the fabric. The desk had a single drawer that I hadn't opened yet. I pulled it. Stuck it first, then slid out with a scrape. Inside, 2 dried-up pens, a stack of blank funeral programs, a roll of clear tape, and a small notepad with nothing written on it. I closed the drawer. The silence was still there, pressed in close. I checked my phone again, even though only a minute had passed. Peyton. My name. From behind the prep room door. I froze. The voice came from the hallway. A man's voice. Low, even tone. Not loud. Just clear enough to reach me through the door I'd left halfway open. I didn't move. Peyton. It said again. Same tone. No inflection. Like someone reading a name off a list. I hadn't given my name to anyone here except Andrea. It was on the paperwork, on the key card, on the checklist. But no one had used it out loud. Andrea had just called me you the whole time. I stayed in the chair, hands flat on the desk. I know you're there. The voice paused. You parked by the river, under the tree with the low branches. You've been there 2 weeks now. My stomach dropped. You had a burrito earlier. Gas station. You didn't heat it long enough. Ate it cold in the middle. I had. I'd microwaved it at the Holiday for 40 seconds. Didn't want to wait for the full minute. Ate it in the car before driving here. I hadn't told anyone that. Hadn't even thought about it since. You should come closer, the voice said. I have something for you. I stood up. Didn't mean to. My legs just moved. I took 2 steps toward the door before I caught myself. Rule 3. If someone calls your name from the prep room after midnight, do not answer or enter the prep room until verifying the source. I was in the prep room. The voice was outside it. But the rule said prep room. It said if someone calls from the prep room. The voice was in the hallway, calling to the prep room. I backed up, hit the desk with my hip. The pain was sharp and immediate and real. It's meant for you, the voice said, closer now, right outside the door. You left it behind, long time ago. I've been keeping it. I didn't leave anything behind. I didn't know this place. I'd never been here before 2 nights ago. My hand reached for the door handle anyway. I wanted to see. Wanted to know what it was talking about. Wanted to verify the source. That's what the rule said. Verify the source. Just look. Just check. I yanked my hand back. No. I grabbed my phone off the desk, shoved it in my pocket, moved fast toward the back of the room where the second door led to the storage hallway. I didn't look at the main door. Didn't look at the gap where the hallway was. I pushed through the back door, and it swung shut behind me with a soft click. The storage hallway was darker. 1 overhead light flickering just barely. I walked past the 3 connected storage rooms to the 4th one. My room. The one with the cot and the metal locker and the window facing the parking lot. I went inside and shut the door. No lock on it. Just a handle and a latch. I thought about pushing the locker in front of it, but didn't. If Andrea came back, if there was an emergency, if I needed to leave fast. I sat on the cot. The mattress was thin enough I could feel the metal frame through it. I pulled my phone out. 1:14 a.m. I listened. No footsteps, no voice, no sound at all. The silence was still there. That same flat, dead quiet. I opened my phone, pulled up Andrea's number from the contact info she'd given me. My thumb hovered over the call button. What would I say? Someone called my name. Something knows where I've been sleeping. She told me the rules were non-negotiable. She told me to follow them exactly. I hadn't answered. Hadn't entered the prep room. I'd left it. I'd followed the rule. Probably. Maybe. I didn't call. I set the phone on the cot next to me, screen facing up so I could see the time. 1:16, 1:17. I needed this job. Needed the cot, the key card, the building access. Needed the paycheck, even if I hadn't seen one yet. I had 100 and change in my account and nowhere else to go. Charlotte wasn't answering. Cameron sure as hell wasn't going to help. Eliana had deadbolted her door. This was it. And something here knew my name, knew where I'd parked, knew what I'd eaten. Something here was paying attention. I sat on the cot, watched the numbers change on my phone, and listened to the silence press in from all sides. I stayed in my room until 2:05. Checked the time probably 8 times before that. The silence hadn't lifted. It just sat there, thick and wrong. No HVAC hum or pipes or anything. Rule 2 said don't approach the cooler door between 2:11 and 2:26. Leave the area by 2:10 if you're nearby. I wasn't nearby. I was in my storage room with the door closed and the metal locker pushed maybe 6 inches to the left so I could lean against the wall and still see the window. The parking lot lights were on. My Civic was right where I'd left it. At 2:09, I stood up, grabbed my phone, walked back out into the hallway toward the prep room because that felt safer than sitting in the dark waiting for something I couldn't predict. The cooler was in the basement. I knew that from Andrea's tour, down the service elevator or the back stairs near the storage rooms. She'd pointed at the stairwell door but hadn't taken me down, said I wouldn't need to go down there most nights. Deliveries happened during the day. Cooler maintenance wasn't my job. 2:11 hit while I was standing in the prep room doorway. I checked my phone, felt stupid about it, but I checked. Nothing happened. I figured maybe tonight would be quiet, maybe the rules were just precautions. Things that could happen, but didn't always happen. That made sense. Hospitals had protocols for stuff that rarely went wrong. This was probably the same. 2:13. The scraping started. Faint at first. I almost thought I imagined it. But then it came again, a little louder. Metal on concrete maybe, or something dragging. It was coming from below me, from the basement. I stepped back from the doorway. My shoulders hit the filing cabinet. The scraping continued, slow, rhythmic, like something being pulled across the floor in short increments. Drag, pause, drag, pause. 2:15. The rhythm steadied. It wasn't frantic. It was patient, methodical, the kind of sound that didn't need to hurry because it had all the time in the world. I needed to not think about it. That was the whole point of the rule. Stay away, don't engage, let it happen, and let it pass. I left the prep room and went back to the storage hallway. The first storage room had those folding chairs, about 60 of them stacked against the wall. I turned on the light, pulled the first chair off the stack and flipped it open. The metal was cold, a little dusty. I grabbed a rag from my pocket, same one I'd used on the pews earlier, and wiped down the seat and the backrest. The scraping was still audible, fainter here, but I could hear it if I stopped moving. I didn't stop moving. I wiped down the chair frame, both sides, the joints where the legs folded. I set it aside and grabbed the next one, opened it, wiped it, set it down. The next one had a loose screw in the backrest. I ran my thumb over it, couldn't tighten it without a screwdriver. I wiped it anyway. My phone said 2:18. The scraping was directly below me now, or maybe it had always been below me and I'd just moved closer to it. The storage rooms were near the back. The stairwell was near the back. I folded the chairs I'd cleaned and restacked them, grabbed 3 more. My hands were shaking a little, not a lot, just enough that the rag slipped once and I had to catch it. 2:20. The scraping changed, slower now. The pauses between drags stretched longer. It reminded me of something winding down, running out of steam. I kept wiping, focused on a spot of old adhesive stuck to one chair seat, picked at it with my thumbnail until it peeled away in a thin strip. 2:21. The scraping stopped. I stood there holding the chair, rag in one hand, waiting for it to start again. It didn't. The silence that replaced it was worse, heavier, like Andrea said in the rule. Like the air had weight now. I could feel it pressing against my ears. 2:23. I set the chair down, wiped my palms on my jeans. They were sweating. 2:24. The rule said 2:26. Don't approach until after 2:26. 2:25. I counted 60 seconds in my head, probably counted too fast, but when I checked my phone again, it said 2:26. I didn't move right away. Gave it another 30 seconds. Then a minute. 2:27. I walked back to the hallway, stood at the top of the stairwell door. It was plain, gray metal, no window, a push-bar handle. I pressed down. The door opened. The stairwell smelled like concrete and something chemical. Bleach, maybe. The lights were on, fluorescent, humming the way the hallway lights hummed. I went down. 12 steps. Metal railing on the left. The walls were painted cinder block, beige. The basement hallway was narrow. Linoleum floor, 2 doors on the right, 1 on the left. The one on the left had a keypad lock and a small square window with wire mesh inside the glass. The cooler. The door was open. Not wide, maybe an inch. Enough to see black space beyond it. I stopped walking, stood maybe 10 feet back. Normal explanations. I could do that, plenty of them. The seal was old, didn't catch right. Andrea had been down here earlier and didn't pull it all the way shut. The temperature differential created pressure changes that pushed it open. Totally standard. I walked forward, grabbed the handle. It was cold, stainless steel. I pulled it toward me until I felt the seal catch. That soft, suctioning sound. The kind refrigerators make. I let go. The door stayed shut. I looked down. There was a toe tag on the floor. Right at the threshold, face down. My chest tightened. Rule 1. If a toe tag is found flipped to blank side, turn it back over immediately without reading the reverse. I didn't crouch, didn't touch it with my hands. I used my shoe, slid the toe of my boot under it, and flipped it. The tag landed printed side up. The name read, Peyton Perkins. I stared at it. My name. Typed in the same font as the rules document. Black ink on a manila tag with a reinforced hole punched at the top and a string loop. I bent down, picked it up. It was cold. Wet. Not dripping, but damp. Like it had been somewhere humid. The string was rough against my fingers. The lights flickered, just once. The fluorescence dimmed, buzzed louder, then came back. I shoved the tag in my pocket and turned around. Walked fast back to the stairs. Took them 2 at a time. Pushed through the door into the main hallway and kept walking until I hit the prep room. I pulled out my phone, found Andrea's number, called. It rang 4 times. Voicemail. Her voice, clipped and professional. You've reached Andrea Navarro. Leave a message. I hung up, tried again, same thing. I stood there breathing hard, staring at my phone. I pulled up the keypad, started typing 911, stopped, deleted it. Typed the Minneapolis non-emergency number I'd looked up once when someone smashed my car window last year. I got 6 digits in and stopped. What was I going to say? There's a toe tag with my name on it. I heard scraping. A voice knew what I ate for dinner. They'd ask if I was safe. I'd say yes. They'd ask if anyone was threatening me. I'd say I don't know. They'd ask if I'd taken anything. I'd say no. They'd tell me to leave the building if I felt unsafe, and then I wouldn't have the job, wouldn't have the cot, wouldn't have anywhere to go at 6 a.m. when my shift ended. I deleted the number, put my phone in my pocket, felt the toe tag next to it, cold and damp through the fabric. Rule 5. From 3:00 to 3:07, stand in the front lobby facing the door. Don't turn around until the wall clock reads 3:07. I had 32 minutes. I walked to the lobby, past Chapel A, past the arrangement office. The big wall clock above the front desk read 2:28. The second hand ticked forward, loud in the silence. I didn't sit at the arrangement desk. I stood next to it, leaned against the edge, watched the clock. My hand went to my pocket, felt the outline of the tag through the fabric. I pulled it out, looked at it again under the chandelier light. Peyton Perkins. Same spelling, same everything. I put it back. 29 minutes now. I stayed where I was, watched the second-hand sweep, waited for whatever came next. At 2:57, the service elevator dinged. I was still in the lobby. The wall clock read 2:57 and maybe 15 seconds. 3 minutes before I was supposed to stand under it and stare at the door until 3:07. The ding came from the back hallway. I turned my head. I couldn't see the elevator from where I stood, but I knew the sound. Same tone as when it chimed on its own at 12:48. I walked toward it. Not fast, just steady. The hallway smelled the same. Industrial cleaner and old carpet. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and one of them flickered the way it had been flickering since around 1:30. I passed the prep room on my left. The door was still closed. I'd shut it after the voice stopped talking earlier, and I hadn't opened it since. The service elevator was at the end of the hall past the 3 connected storage rooms. When I got close enough, I could see the arrow indicator above the doors. It was blinking. Up arrow, like the car had just arrived from below. Floor indicator showed 1, lit up. Same as when I checked it at 12:53. I stopped in front of the doors. No sound from inside the elevator. No machinery, hum, or cable movement. Just the blinking arrow. The doors didn't open on their own. I pressed the call button. It lit up under my thumb. The doors slid open with that smooth, mechanical sound. The car was empty. No person inside. No boxes or equipment. Just the standard elevator interior. Beige metal walls. Rubber floor mat with ribbed texture. Handrail on 3 sides. Panel with 2 buttons. 1 and B for basement. But there was a smell. Metallic. Sharp. Not rust exactly. More like when you hold coins in your hand for too long, or when you get a nosebleed and taste it in the back of your throat. And there was something in the back corner. A stone. Polished black. Smooth surface. Roughly the size of my palm. It sat on the floor mat in the left rear corner where the walls met. River rock, maybe. The kind you'd find on a beach or in a stream bed. Completely out of place. I stood in the doorway, with my hand holding the door sensor so it wouldn't close. The stone just sat there. It didn't move or make noise. It looked normal. Just a rock. I thought about picking it up. My hand actually moved toward it before I stopped myself. No, don't touch it. I had no rule about stones or objects in elevators, but I had enough sense not to grab random things that appeared where they shouldn't be. Especially not tonight. Not after the toe tag with my name on it, and the voice that knew what I ate for dinner. I stepped into the car, avoided the stone, pressed the button for floor 1 even though the indicator already showed 1. The button lit up. I stepped back into the hallway and let the doors slide shut. The car stayed put. I watched the floor indicator. It didn't move, didn't go down to B or anywhere else. Good. Rule 4. Service elevator must remain on floor 1 unless actively in use. I'd done that part. I'd kept it in place. I turned to walk back to the lobby. Behind me I heard a click. Soft, metallic, like a lock disengaging. I stopped, turned my head. The prep room door was still closed, but the sound had come from there, from that direction. I was sure of it. I walked back, slow. My boots made almost no sound on the carpet. When I reached the prep room door, I stopped and listened. Nothing. I put my hand on the knob, turned it. The door wasn't locked. It opened smooth and easy. I hadn't locked it earlier. There was no keyhole on the outside anyway. But the click I'd heard had sounded exactly like a deadbolt retracting or a lock turning over. The prep room looked the same. Desk, filing cabinet, printer. My phone was still on the desk where I'd left it after trying to call Andrea twice. The clock on the screen showed 2:58. I stepped back into the hallway and pulled the door mostly shut. Not latched, just resting against the frame. Then the voice spoke again. Same voice as before. Low, even, male. Andrea's a caretaker. It came from inside the prep room, from the other side of the door I'd just closed. I didn't move. She follows the same rules you do, the voice continued. She's been following them longer. That's the only difference. I should have walked away, should have gone straight to the lobby for Rule 5. But I stayed where I was. The rules aren't protection, the voice said. They're training. My jaw tightened. I wanted to push the door open, wanted to see what was in there, wanted to tell it to shut up. I didn't. You're learning compliance, it said. One instruction at a time. The tone was calm, patient, almost kind, but wrong. Familiar in a way I couldn't place at first. Then I got it. It sounded like my father. Not the exact voice, the cadence, the rhythm. The way Johnny Perkins talked when he wanted you to do something and wasn't going to argue about it. Measured, low volume, expecting obedience. I stepped back from the door. My phone said 2:59. I turned and walked to the lobby. At 300, I stood under the wall clock. Rule 5. From 3 to 3:07, stand in front lobby facing the door without turning around until wall clock reads 3:07. The clock ticked above my head, loud, steady, second hand moving in smooth increments. I faced the front doors. Double glass doors with brass handles, dark outside. Parking lot lights visible through the glass, but nothing else. My reflection stared back at me, faint, transparent. I kept my arms at my sides, didn't cross them, didn't put my hands in my pockets, just stood there. At 3:02, something moved outside, a shape, tall, on the other side of the glass. I didn't move my head, but I could see it in my peripheral vision, right side of the doors, standing maybe 3 feet back from the glass. It was shaped like a person, like someone wearing a suit, broad shoulders, narrow waist, but the details were wrong, blurred, like I was seeing it through fogged glass even though the doors were clear. It didn't move closer, just stood there. I kept my eyes forward, focused on my own reflection, on the brass door handles, on anything except the shape. The clock ticked. 3:02 and 20 seconds, 30, 40. The shape was still there. My hands wanted to curl into fists. I kept them loose. Don't turn around. Don't look at it directly. Don't unlock the doors. The rule didn't say anything about people outside. Didn't say what to do if someone knocked or tried to get in. It just said, stand here facing the door until 3:07. So that's what I did. At 3:04, the voice pushed into my head. Not from the hallway, not from the prep room, inside. In my thoughts. Let me in. It had Johnny's tone again. Calm, controlled. The tone that said this wasn't a request. Open the door. My right foot moved forward. Half a step. I didn't decide to move it. It just happened. I stopped, locked my knees. You know what happens if you don't listen. I didn't know. I had no idea what would happen. but the voice said it like it was obvious. Like I should remember. My hand lifted, started reaching for the door handle. I yanked it back, shoved both hands in my hoodie pocket, felt the damp toe tag against my knuckles. Don't make this harder. 3:04 and 50 seconds. I bit down on the inside of my cheek. Hard. Tasted blood. The pain helped. Cleared my head just enough. I kept my hands in my pocket, kept my feet still. The voice didn't speak again. At 3:06, the clock stuttered. The second hand froze. Ticked backward 1 increment, then forward 2, then stopped again. I heard it. The mechanism inside the clock skipping, grinding. Outside, the suit-shaped figure moved closer to the glass. Fog spread across the window. Condensation, like someone breathing on it from the outside. But thick, unnatural. It covered both doors in seconds. Then words appeared in the fog. Backward, written from the outside so I could read them from where I stood. Names. O'Brien, Castellano, Henning. They appeared one at a time, each name written in the same slanted handwriting, each one fading as the next appeared. Tran Moss Whitfield. I recognized some of them. I'd seen those names in the arrangement office, on files, on the schedule board Andrea had shown me during the tour. Kowalski Peyton Perkins. My name, last, written in the same hand as the others. The clock ticked. 3:06 and 55 seconds. I didn't move. At 3:07, the fog cleared. Just gone, like someone wiped it away. The glass was clean, dry. The suit-shaped figure was gone too, parking lot empty. Just my Civic under the far light and the white van I'd noticed earlier. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Behind me, from the back hallway, the service elevator dinged. Third time tonight. I turned. The lobby was empty. Hallway 2, from what I could see. Clock above my head read 3:07 and 12 seconds. I walked toward the elevator. The arrow indicator wasn't blinking this time, but the floor indicator showed one. Same as before. The doors were open. I stopped in the hallway about 10 feet back. The car was empty again. No person, no boxes, but the stone was gone. In its place, in the back left corner where the stone had been sitting, there was a small rectangular object. I stepped closer. A printer cartridge, the kind that goes in a label maker or a tag printer. Black plastic casing, about the size of a deck of cards. It was dripping, dark liquid, thick. It pooled on the rubber floor mat underneath the cartridge and ran in a slow line toward the elevator door track. Not ink. I knew what it was. I didn't want to know, but I did. The building collects names. The thought hit me all at once. Not something I reasoned out, just suddenly clear. The names on the window, the toe tag with my name. The voice saying Andrea was a caretaker. The rules that trained compliance. The building collected names, and it wanted mine. I moved fast. Hit the emergency stop button on the panel inside the elevator. Red button under a plastic cover. I flipped the cover up and slammed my palm down. The button lit up. A buzzer sounded. Loud. Harsh. The doors started to close. I grabbed the edge of one door and shoved it back. It resisted, motor fighting me. But I got it open far enough to jam my boot in the gap. The door pushed against my boot. I could feel the pressure. Not enough to crush, but enough to hurt. I looked around. Needed something to wedge the doors. Back down the hall. First storage room. Folding chairs. I ran. Grabbed the nearest chair from the stack. Didn't unfold it. Just carried it folded. Ran back to the elevator. Shoved the chair into the gap between the doors. Metal frame against metal frame. The doors pushed against it but didn't close. The buzzer kept sounding. I pulled my boot free. The chair held. The cartridge was still in the corner, still dripping. I didn't touch it. I turned and ran for the stairwell door. The gray metal door with the push-bar handle. Down the stairs, 12 steps, basement hallway. The cooler door was on the left, still shut. I'd closed it myself at 2:20-something. It had a keypad lock, 4-digit code. Andrea had given me her number. I'd saved it in my phone, but I didn't have her code. Except I did. She'd punched it in during the tour. I'd been standing behind her, watching. I closed my eyes, tried to remember. Her hand. 4 buttons. Which ones? I opened my eyes, stepped up to the keypad, started entering the code. I punched in the last digit. The keypad beeped once and the light turned green. The cooler door clicked and I pulled it open. Cold air rolled out. Not normal refrigerator cold. Heavy cold that pushed against my face and chest like something solid. I stepped through anyway. The cooler was bigger than I expected. Maybe 15 feet deep and 12 wide, with metal racks on both sides stacked 3 levels high. Fluorescent tubes and wire cages ran along the ceiling. Everything was stainless steel and white tile except the bodies on the racks. Most were covered with sheets, but a few had their faces visible. I didn't look at those for long. Toe tags hung from almost every rack. Some faced the right way with names and dates printed in black. Others hung backward, showing only blank manila. I moved to the first one, flipped it. Margaret Henning. Normal. Printed neatly with a date from 3 days ago. Second tag, also blank side out. I flipped it and read David Moss. That name had been on the glass doors at 3:07. Third tag was already facing the right way. I checked it anyway. Robert Tran. Also on the glass. Fourth tag hung twisted so only the string showed. I straightened it and flipped it over. The ink was smeared like someone had dragged a wet thumb across it before it dried. I couldn't read the name, just black streaks. Fifth tag, blank side out. I reached for it and stopped. My hand was shaking. Not much, but enough to notice. I wiped my palm on my jeans and flipped the tag. Caretaker, all caps. Same font as the rules. No date. I stared at it for 3 seconds, then moved to the next tag. Flipped it. Normal name I didn't recognize. Flipped another. Smeared. Flipped another. Normal. I was halfway down the left rack when the scraping started again. Same sound as before. Metal on concrete. Slow dragging with pauses between, coming from behind me near the door. I turned. The suit shape stood at the far end of the cooler near the entrance. Taller than the doorway, but it was inside anyway. The angles under the fabric kept shifting. Shoulders that didn't stay in one place. Arms too long. The face was flat and pale, like someone pressed their palm into wet plaster and left prints. No eyes I could see, just indentations where eyes should be. It moved forward, not walking, more like being pulled, like something had a rope tied around its chest and was dragging it toward me one increment at a time. The scraping matched its movement. Drag, pause, drag, pause. I backed up until my shoulders hit the rear wall of the cooler. Cold soaked through my hoodie. The suit shape kept coming. 5 feet away. 4. I shoved past it toward the door. My shoulder went through part of its arm, and the cold there was worse. Worse than the cooler air. Worse than anything. I hit the hallway and slammed the cooler door. The magnetic seal caught. The keypad light turned red. Then I remembered the elevator. I'd left it wedged open with the folding chair. The emergency buzzer was still going. I could hear it from down here. Loud and steady and wrong. I ran for the stairs. Halfway up, the prep room hit me. Not the actual room. Images. Like someone shoved them directly into my head without asking. Andrea. Younger. Maybe 25 or 30. Sitting at the same prep room desk with the same type of paper in front of her. The rules. She was reading them and her hand was shaking worse than mine had been in the cooler. An older man stood behind her. Tall, thin, gray hair combed back, wearing a suit with a tie pin. He wasn't touching her, but he was close enough that she couldn't push the chair back without hitting him. He said something I couldn't hear and pointed at the signature line. Andrea signed. The man smiled and took the paper. He looked at it the way someone looks at a deed or a title. Ownership. Leo O'Brien. I didn't know how I knew his name, but I did. The images stopped. I was standing on the stairs with one hand on the railing and my breath coming too fast. Andrea had been following the rules to keep the elevator sealed, the cooler sealed, everything sealed, and I broke it. I wedged the door open and hit the emergency stop, and now the suit shape was out. I took the rest of the stairs fast and shoved through the door into the main hallway. The buzzer was louder up here, painful, loud. The service elevator was still jammed open with the folding chair wedged in the door gap. Smoke was coming out. Not thick smoke, thin and gray. The dripping cartridge in the back corner had spread a pool of dark liquid across half the floor mat. Then I saw the hand. Pale. Too long. Reaching out from inside the elevator car toward the hallway. I didn't have tools, didn't have a weapon, didn't have anything except what was already here. I ran to the cleaning closet and grabbed the aerosol disinfectant from the shelf. The can was half full, maybe 3/4. I shoved it under my arm and grabbed the long lighter we used for the memorial candles in the chapels. When I got back to the elevator, the hand had moved. It was gripping the edge of the door frame now. The suit shape was pulling itself through the gap above the folding chair. I flicked the lighter, held down the aerosol trigger, aimed the spray through the flame. Fire shot out. 3 feet. 4. The spray caught and turned into a bright orange burst that hit the rubber door seal and the carpet runner inside the elevator car. The suit shape recoiled. Not like a person, like heat disrupted whatever it was made of. The hand let go of the door frame and pulled back, but the fire didn't stop. The rubber seal was burning, the carpet too. Black smoke poured out now, and the flames spread toward the back wall of the car where the cartridge was still dripping. I dropped the can and the lighter, kicked the folding chair out of the gap. The elevator doors tried to close, but one was warped from the heat. They closed halfway, then stuck. I shoved my boot into the gap and pushed. The motor fought me. I pushed harder, and the doors scraped shut with a sound like grinding metal. I pulled the fire alarm on the wall near Chapel A. The bell was louder than the buzzer. High-pitched and repeating, sprinklers in the ceiling started up. Water came down cold and hard and soaked through my hoodie in seconds. I ran back to the cleaning closet, grabbed the mop bucket I'd used earlier. It still had dirty water in it from mopping the lobby. I carried it to the service elevator and dumped it at the base of the doors where smoke was leaking out through the seal. The water spread across the tile and ran into the gaps. Steam rose where it hit hot metal. I looked around for something heavy. The arrangement office had a table near the window, dark wood with an urn display on top. I shoved the urns off. They hit the floor but didn't break. I dragged the table into the hallway and pushed it against the elevator doors. It was heavy enough that I had to use my shoulder. The table legs scraped tile and left marks, but it wedged in place, blocking the doors. Then I went outside. The side door near my room was closest. I pushed through it and stood under the metal awning in the parking lot. My Civic was still there. The white van, too. Water was still coming down inside, but out here it was dry, cold, probably 40 degrees. I bent over with my hands on my knees and coughed. My throat tasted like smoke and chemicals. My hoodie smelled like burnt rubber. Sirens started up a few blocks away. 2, maybe 3. Getting closer. The fire trucks pulled into the lot at 3:38. 2 trucks, red with white stripes. Minneapolis Fire Department printed on the side. A firefighter in turnout gear got out of the first truck. He was shorter than me, stocky. He looked at the building, then at me. "You call it in?" he asked. I nodded, coughed again. "Anyone else inside?" "No." "You sure?" Yeah. He turned and called to another firefighter pulling hoses off the truck. Barry, single occupant, he's out. Barry nodded and kept working. A woman in the same gear walked over to me. Taller, light brown hair and a braid tucked under her helmet. She had a radio clipped to her chest rig. "You're the one who pulled the alarm?" she asked. "Yeah." "What started it?" "Elevator," I said. "Electrical." She looked at me for a second, then nodded. "Stay here." Her name was Gladys. I saw it on her coat when she turned. They went inside, Barry and Gladys and 2 others. I heard them calling to each other, heard the hiss of the hoses. The sprinklers shut off after a few minutes, but the fire bell kept going until someone found the panel and killed it. I stood under the awning and watched the water run out the side door onto the pavement. At 4:12, a sedan pulled into the lot. Dark blue. Andrea got out. She was wearing the same clothes as earlier. Black slacks, funeral home blazer. Her hair was still in the same ponytail. She looked at the trucks, at the water, at me. She walked over and stopped 3 feet away. "What happened?" she said. Not a question. I pulled the toe tag from my pocket and handed it to her. She looked at it, read my name, turned it over, handed it back. "The cooler?" she asked. "Yeah, and the elevator. The suit shape came through." She didn't ask what I meant, didn't ask for details. She just looked at the building again and nodded once. "Did anyone see it?" she asked. "No, just me. I got the doors shut before the crews got here." "Good." A man in a fire lieutenant's coat walked out of the side door, older than the others, blonde hair, clipboard in hand. He saw Andrea and came over. "You're the owner?" he asked. "Manager," Andrea said. "Andrea Navarro. Lieutenant August Mendez. We've got the fire out. Looks like it started in the service elevator. Electrical fault, maybe. We'll need to do a full inspection before you reopen." Andrea nodded. "Of course. I need to ask your employee a few questions." Andrea looked at me, then back at Mendez. "Go ahead." Mendez turned to me. "You were here when it started?" "Yeah." "Doing what?" "Cleaning. I work overnight." "You see what caused it?" "No, I just saw smoke coming from the elevator. I hit the alarm." "You try to put it out first?" I hesitated. Andrea was watching me. "I dumped some water on it," I said. "Didn't help." Mendez wrote something on his clipboard. "You smell anything before the smoke? Burning plastic? Ozone?" "Maybe," I said. "I'm not sure." He asked 4 more questions. Where I was when I noticed the smoke, whether the elevator had been acting strange earlier, whether I'd seen anyone else in the building, whether I'd touched the electrical panel. Andrea stood next to me the whole time. When I answered, she didn't correct me or add anything, just listened. Mendez finished writing and looked at Andrea. "We'll file the report and send a copy to your office. You'll need an inspection and probably a full elevator replacement before you reopen this section." "Understood," Andrea said. Mendez walked back to the trucks. Barry and Gladys were coiling hoses. One of the other firefighters was still inside checking hot spots. Andrea waited until Mendez was out of earshot. Then she looked at me. "You can't come back," she said. I nodded. "I'll process your pay for tonight and mail the check to whatever address you give me." "Okay. Don't talk about what you saw, not to anyone." "I won't." She pulled a business card from her pocket and wrote something on the back. Handed it to me. "If anything follows you, call that number, not mine, that one." I looked at the card. The front had the funeral home's name and address. The back had 7 digits in her handwriting, no area code. "What is it?" I asked. "Someone who knows how to stop it." She walked back to her car, didn't go inside the building, just got in the sedan and sat there with the engine off, watching the firefighters finish up. I got in my Civic, put the toe tag in the glove box, put the business card in there too. At 5:43, the fire trucks left. Andrea's sedan was still there, but I didn't wait. I pulled out of the lot and drove south on Lyndale until I hit the highway. 2 days later, the news said Washburn-McReevy was temporarily closed for repairs and elevator replacement. Estimated reopening in 3 weeks. I was in Fargo by then. Another warehouse job. Different company. Day shift this time. I got it off a listing that didn't ask for references. Pay wasn't great, but it came with 4 walls and I didn't have to work alone. The toe tag stayed in my glove box until winter, December, maybe January. I stopped at a rest area off I-94 on the way back from a delivery run. It was late. No one else there. I pulled the tag out and held my lighter under it until it caught. The edges curled and blackened. The string burned fast. My name turned to ash and blew away across the frozen grass. After that, nothing called me by name at night. No voices, no tags, no backward writing on glass. It was like the name had been filed somewhere. Logged, owned. And whatever owned it didn't need to ask for it again.